Welcome to the 2019 Trail Bike of the Year test. And this year we've split it into two different categories, 27.5 and 29. Now PB, you did the 29-inch test. What were the bikes in that category?
Okay, well the bikes this year are the Scott Genius 940, the Specialized Stump Jumper Evo Comp Alloy 29er, Vitus Escarpe 29 VRX, Commencal Meta TR 29er British Edition, and the YT Jeffsy 29 CF Comp.
So there's some top bikes in that list there. In fact, there are, if my memory serves me, 4 different models that have won our Trail Bike of the Year test in the last 3 years. So it must have been quite a difficult test to pick a winner, was it?
Well, whenever you start a bike test, you always start with a blank sheet of paper and you try and establish a pecking order of the bikes. And right from the get-go, there were 5 bikes were all level pegging, all really good, on paper looked amazing, ride quality is really good. And it was just potentially, it was probably one of the hardest tests I've done, you know, over the last few years. The winner was this bike, was the Jeffsy, but it wasn't a clear winner. It was like throughout this test, it was neck and neck with the Commencal. I mean, the other 3 bikes, all really good, all amazing, really in their own way, right? But these 2 bikes were like, one day I'd say, oh yeah, this is the winner. The next day it was this one. I rode it here, I was thinking, oh, that one's the winner now. And it was like this duking it out right until the final summing up, really.
Before we get on to those top 2 bikes and the winner, just tell us a little bit about the other 3.
Basically, Specialized first, really good bike, amazing. It's like radical geometry. You can read all about how different it is to a normal stump jumper in the mag. The frame's amazing, ride quality's really good. We just felt that the parts on the bike weren't going to last the sort of riding that you were going to do on the bike.
Yeah.
Because this bike, you would totally hammer this bike into the ground because you can ride it really hard. And we didn't think that the wheels, the fork, some of the other components would basically, they couldn't cut the mustard over the long term. And you could totally upgrade, but I think that's just a load more cost that really you don't have to bear with some of the other bikes on test.
So what about the Scott? I mean, that's one that I gave.
Yeah, amazing. Really good frame. The best feeling frame of any of the bikes on test. Suspension felt really supple, really planted. But again, it was, you know, some of the parts on it weren't that great. You know, you look at the YT and the Commencal and you just go through the spec page and look what you get for your money. You get more bike if you shop elsewhere.
Yeah. And you've still got the whole tied in with the twin lock system.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if you're into climbing, into that thing, it's a feature it's helpful. But I'd quite like to have it as an option. Just if you don't want it, just get rid of it. You know, but there's pros and cons with that, I think. The Vitus hasn't really changed. They said to us they were going to make some changes. They're going to change the geometry, maybe do a few little tweaks.
It was quite high last year, wasn't it? The BB
yeah, no, really high BB. The thing is, it rode really good because it has a long wheelbase, slack head angle. It's a nice riding bike.
It's got great suspension, hasn't it?
Yeah,
36 fork with a grip 2 damper.
Yeah, really good spec. You can't criticise it for the parts on it. The problem is, the BB is still too high. It's got a 150 post on it now, 150mm dropper. So whenever you're descending, the saddle's right in, it's almost right in your face. You can't get low enough.
Yeah.
So when it's really, really steep, it feels a bit nervous because you're high, your bum's in the air. And I suspect that it might change next year.
Yeah. Then the 2-horse race was really this, and the Commencal, wasn't it? We all loved riding this Commencal as well, wasn't it? It was a great bike.
Really good bike. If you like doing an uplift day, it was the bike to have. It had the best fork.
Yep.
The Commencal's got a 36. Factory, it's like the best.
It's sturdier and it had a better damper as well, didn't it?
Better damping, stiffer, wider. It just was, and you rode the fork more than this bike. I mean, you could really hammer that bike when you're doing an uplift day. And if you were just testing in that environment, you would totally give that the win.
Yeah.
But we don't test in that environment exclusively. We go and ride trails. And this was the better all-rounder. I mean,
we had to pedal to the top of the hill, don't we? And the thing with the Commencal was
it was just heavy. It was extra weight, and
the clearance at the back, wasn't it?
There's
You clip your heels on
You
that
do,
frame.
and that's what we said when we gave it the win a couple of years ago, and it's the same problem now. These are not major things, they're just tiny little differences between the two bikes, but that's the difference between the winner and second place. So
yeah, it was literally the Achilles heel of that Commencal,
yeah, totally,
wasn't it?
yeah, totally, yeah, definitely.
Well, let's move on to the winner then. So the Jeffsy, and this is a brand new version of the Jeffsy for this year, isn't it?
Yeah, totally, yeah. It's carbon front end, aluminium back end. The rest of the bikes were all aluminium. This was the only one you get a carbon front end, and it's the same money. So obviously it's lighter. This is the lightest bike by, I think it was about maybe £0.5, something like that. I can't remember. It will say in the spec, and it's a really great bike, but it's not a 10. I'll say it now, didn't get a 10 out of 10.
Well, before we talk about the little niggles and why it didn't get 10, let's discuss why it was actually the winner. Because when we tested the Jeffsy before, we sort of criticised it for being a bit too short and a little bit flexy and lightweight, wasn't it? It was when you really pushed it hard, then it didn't feel like it was quite up to the job.
Yeah, if you have the two extremes, if you've got cross country and you've got sort of trail, hardcore riding it, and the original Jeffsy was at the cross country end of the trail spectrum, I'd say, even though it had like, I think it was 140 travel. This bike's a bit more, it's positioned slightly differently. It's a longer bike, slacker, I think it's a bit lower, and to change the sizing slightly. It's a really roomy bike now. I mean, you get on it and you feel really...
This is an XL, we should point out,
isn't
it? But the large is pretty average, above average in terms of length, reaches, was it 470, I think?
Yeah, I mean, this bike, when you sit on it, you feel really centred. You're in such a neutral position on this bike all the time that you can ride really hard and fast. The suspension's quite progressive, yeah. So they've done a good job, and you do get a lot of bike for your money.
Well, they've definitely made it a more capable machine and a much burlier, stiffer kind of. It's almost like the bastard love child of the old Jeffsy and the Capra, isn't it? And it's kind of somewhere in between. It's almost like they've sort of made it and then they've gone, hang on a minute, people might buy this instead of the Capra. Do we need to make them a little bit further apart?
Yeah.
So we put a lighter fork on it.
Yes. I think they might have just thought, we're designing a bike. We're almost redesigning our bike. We're redesigning a Capra. But there's a more expensive version of this bike with a 36 on it, with more travel. And one of the criticisms was we just felt that the fork was a bit spindly and it could just do with a bit more travel. And YT make a bike like that, but I don't understand why they make that bike and then have a load of others that are not like that as well, because that's totally capable. I mean,
but it's you know, it's so the frame's very stiff, so it feels like a stiff bike when you're riding it, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. When you
trail riding situations,
it's really solid, but the fork lets it down a bit because the fork's flexy. It's not a noodle, it's just flexier than a 36. And when you really start to, when we went to the Forest of Dean, we did an uplift day, you really notice that it's a bit at odds with the frame because the frame's really stiff. And the bike can feel like if you're hitting roots, it can get deflected a little bit and it's more pronounced because of the stiffness of the frame. On the flip side of that, when you're climbing, it's a rocket ship.
It's real efficient.
Fly up the climbs, really it's amazing.
Efficient. So some of the things with the YT, which is quite unique, it's got the E13 kind of one-stop shop really, hasn't it? It's everything from dropper post to wheels to drivetrain is E13 on this.
It totally is, yeah.
Does it work? I mean, it's quite a different drivetrain to the SRAM stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, you get quite a big range with the E13, but this bike seemed overgeared. Like it felt like it needed a smaller chainring, and you could totally do that. But it just seemed like it needed it from the start.
And the shifting maybe isn't quite as slick as SRAM.
It's clunky. It's not as smooth. It's not as crisp, but it's not as smooth either. It's just a bit rough, the shifting. And it's not the derailleur, it's not the shifter, it's actually the chain on the cassette sprockets. That's what it is. And it just doesn't have that, it doesn't glide up and down like SRAM or Shimano. It doesn't feel like that.
And dropper post was a bit of a problem as well, wasn't it, I believe?
Yeah, well, E13, it's a really top quality post, but it's got fixed positions.
So by that you mean that it will only sit in...
It's set heights, so when you drop it down, it goes down, I think 50 millimetres or 60 millimetres to a 90 millimetre position. There's another position In this day and age, you need infinite adjustment because you don't use a post like that anymore. You just might want to drop it a little bit when you're riding on a rough climb. You want to get it all out of the way. And I just think there's so many better options, but obviously it's part of the E13 package. And I just didn't think it was that good, really.
And so I think there's some other clever things with this, and they've changed the frame design and the bottle design, so you can have a slightly bigger capacity bottle, I believe.
Yeah,
and it's like a magnetic.
It's got a
bottle.
It's got a magnet in there, so it just pulls off, and it's a bit like Fabric do that little integrated thing. It's just got a couple of little. I don't know if you can see that there when I do it.
Yeah.
And it's got this little magnetic thing. It's really cool, and it looks small, but it's actually a full size, and it's neat, tidy, and you can reach it. You can get to it easily, and you get this bottle with it when you buy the bike.
And it's got some neat frame protection as well, I think, isn't it? The dropout, the hanger protects the inside of the stays as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, this, I mean, the detailing on the frame is top quality. You know, it's something that you'd see on $5,000 full suspension bikes from some American companies. This is amazing quality bike.
This is like £400 cheaper than £500 cheaper than the common style.
Yeah, you get more bike for your money.
Yeah,
better value.
It's a cracking bike to ride, and it's almost like those, because the frame and the ride quality was so good. It's almost like you're like, oh, I wish it could be just a little bit better. And
well, yeah, but I think you test in your group, and some of the other bikes did things better than this bike.
Yeah,
and this was just as an overall package.
Nothing did everything better than this bike.
It didn't do it. Yeah, it was just, there wasn't, with this test, there wasn't one favourite bike that we liked riding. They were all good. And with 5 bikes, all amazing. There just wasn't one that was like, that's the bike I'm going to go to every single time. Yeah. And for me, and for us when we test, I think that's a 10 out of 10 bike.
Yeah.
And this wasn't quite a 10 out of 10 bike. Yeah. It's still a great bike.
Cracking bike.
It's still a great bike.
Cracking price, and a deserving Trail Bike of the Year.
Definitely,
2019.
yeah, definitely. And it just looks amazing as well.
Yeah,
totally.
It does.
Yeah, great.